blind man said to the deaf man, listen, Champ Creed's bringing something that the game's been missing. The deaf man said to the blind man, watch, it's Brotivation season and we are ready to rock. What's going on, everybody? This is your friendly neighborhood radio show host, Champ Creed with Fox Sports Radio, and welcome to Brotivation. Yes, Brotivation. Some of you may ask, well, what does that mean? As we go along through these summer shows, through the summer series, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about it. It'll come out with every episode because it's I like to say it's a chamber, if you will, of knowledge, of efficacy, of intelligence. You can't get it all in just one show. That's why we're spreading it out throughout the entire summer. So sit back, enjoy. I like to share a lot of my personal experiences. I like to share experiences that I see other people deal with. And always remember this, Brotivation lesson number 2.78. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others. A smart man learns from his mistakes. So if you're making a lot of mistakes, you are not the wise man. Now, with that being said, I'll drop little jewels throughout the show, drop little nuggets of wisdom to help you enhance your life, not only from a male point of view, but sometimes we'll have a female perspective with multiple guests throughout the season. We'll also have a take on sports that you genuinely don't get when you watch the major sports networks. You know, here's my thing. I'm like you. I wake up, eat some cereal, brush my teeth, watch sports, and if I'm driving to work, I'll listen to sports. And when I'm at work, instead of doing the job, I'll be listening or watching sports. That's just what I do. As a man, that's my thing. That's my comfort zone. That's my steeple of silence, if you will. You know, sports. That's how life is. But what I've come to learn is that through sports, you can learn so many other dynamics about how to carry yourself in life, how to apply the certain mechanics of execution in your sports experience to and apply it to real life. Now, some guys, you may not be sports fans. You might just be tuning on the dial. You may just be driving through trying to find something to listen to while you're in traffic. But if you're here, if you are listening to Brotivation Sports with your host, Champ Creed, there's something for everyone. And I don't spread myself thin trying to please everyone. You may not like my opinions. You may not like my viewpoints and perspective. But with this microphone in front of me, in a studio, and a producer to my left or a producer to my right, we make sure that everything we say is from the heart and that is true. You'll never catch me BSing or pussyfooting around. I give it to you raw. I give it to you straight. Like Old Dirty Bastard. That's what we do. So, with that being said, you know, this show is kind of a special show. This is the fight show. And we're going to talk a little bit about UFC 200. We're going to go down the fights on that card. And for those of you that are gambling men and gambling women, I'm going to give you the smart money. You know, this is going to be the smart money because fight money is big money and big money is smart money. So you're going to get the rundown on that. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an account of my experience at the Muhammad Ali Memorial Services. There are some times in your life where you have to go to funerals. Some people, they try to avoid it. And it's not really a pleasant thing to do. The specter of death, the end of life, for some folks is just too much to bear. And when you have a man that has accomplished such great things in his life and has affected so many people in a positive and influential way, the funeral turns into a celebration of life. And that's one of the things about Brotivation. You know, we want you to enhance the way you live, the way you affect people in a positive way, in an influential way. Muhammad Ali definitely did that across the globe. And although by this time I'm pretty sure you've heard a lot of talking heads, a lot of pundits, a lot of people pay their respects, which all respect is due. Most of those guys and women that were reporting, some were on the scene, some were in their studios, some had recollections of him in his younger days during his prime. I had the opportunity. I've never met Muhammad Ali. I've met people that have known him, and I've heard dozens of entertaining stories. I've heard multitudes of enlightening stories. And this was my time to pay homage by going to Louisville, Kentucky, attending the memorial services, and then just hanging out around the town. When you go certain places, I travel a lot. I think travel is a cornerstone of maturity, development, and it helps broaden your perspective of the world that we live in. Whether it's international travel. Listen, I was born in New York City. I still have friends that haven't gone past the Bronx going north. I've had friends that haven't gone past Jersey going west. I've had friends that just don't want to go anywhere because it's a comfort zone. But I think as a man, Brotivation rule number 7.4, it is imperative, you must travel as far from home as you can. But don't buy a one-way ticket, because if you get in trouble, your ass need to get back. But you must go far. You must channel all of your energy into putting yourself in a position to where you can see the world and see how the world sees you. Because here in America, I'm in the second quarter of manhood, which I'll explain to you the quarters of manhood on the other shows. I'm in my second quarter of manhood, and I had to go to another country, or several countries actually, just to see how I am perceived as being a young black male. Now, with that being said, you can start off small. You can travel regional, and then you can travel from state to state, coast to coast, do what you want to do, figure out how things work, and then you can go on your international trip. And now here's how that all relates to what we're going to talk about regarding Muhammad Ali. Here's a man that at some point, he probably, I'd say definitely, was the most famous man in the world. And when you look back at media in the 20th century, there are certain figures that stand out. And I read this in a magazine once. They said there are 3 people that are known around the world. Number 1 is the Pope. Number 2 is the President of the United States of America. And number 3 is the heavyweight champion of the world, whoever that would be at the time. If you're looking at Joe Louis, if you're looking at Muhammad Ali, because that's where boxing was. I mean, at that time, you had boxing, you had horse racing, and with the development and advent of television, professional wrestling was a big sports draw, ratings-wise, live gate-wise, everything. And Muhammad Ali dabbled in a little bit of all of it. Kentucky Derby, he's from Louisville. Pretty sure he showed up one time or two. But after the break, we'll get into my experience at the Muhammad Ali Memorial Services. Then we'll talk a little bit about Kimbo Slice, who's another guy that, wow, you want to talk about someone who came from nothing and attained what he wanted with the power of his fists. Talk Kimbo Slice. And then after that, what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit of UFC 200 smart money. This is Keith Champ Creed. You're listening to Brotivation Sports on Fox Sports Radio, 1340 AM. We will be back after the break. Welcome back to Brotivation Sports. I'm your host, Champ Creed. You are listening to Fox Sports Radio, 1340 AM. And before the break, I was getting into my story about my trip, my pilgrimage to pay respect to the Honorable Muhammad Ali. Now, I didn't intend to go. I received the news like everyone did. a fateful end of the week. And the weird thing about this, and I'm going to be honest with you, I have a friend of mine, my brother Kevin Brown. We had a talk earlier in the year, and for whatever reason it came up. I think Muhammad Ali, he went to the hospital. He was hospitalized in January. And when he was hospitalized, we said, whoa, is this it? The champ might not make it. What does that do to the world? How will that affect the world? And there's just certain sports figures, certain iconic figures, certain people that, when we were younger, we used to think, man, how's the world going to feel when, someone at the level of Magic Johnson or Michael Jordan or, Bo Jackson. And this is, when Bo Jackson was in his prime, before his career was cut kind of short. The sports luminaries. How will the world be, when these people, cease to exist on this plane? And we came up with a lot of sports figures, but we never brought up Muhammad Ali. Now, just to give you a background, my earliest memory of Muhammad Ali was he was a special guest referee at WrestleMania. I think that may have been like the first time that I actually saw him, and I asked the question, who's that? Why is everybody cheering for this referee? To which then my uncles, my god brothers, they explained to me, and they sat me down and they told me, and then they showed me, different articles, but it still didn't register. And simultaneously at that time, I had a school play, and they were going through characters that historical characters that you have to pick. And I don't know I can't remember if the teacher picked it for me or I picked myself, but I was picked to be Muhammad Ali in a school play. I think I'm like in first grade, second grade, something like that. So, I just thought okay, this guy was just a boxer. I'm young, I don't know anything. So then, I remember one of my uncles, he actually had a Muhammad Ali album. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. This guy's a boxer. What is he doing with a record? And I'm talking about a vinyl, He puts it on, and, the music comes on, the trumpets blare. There's a British guy with a British accent. I think he opens up, and then you hear his voice. And mind you, this was my first time actually hearing his voice. We didn't have YouTube. I couldn't go into archives and look up the video or anything like that. I just saw pictures and read a little bit in the books. So the first thing comes on. This is the legend of Cassius Clay, the most beautiful fighter in the world today. He talks a great deal and brags indeedy of a muscular punch that's incredibly speedy. The fistic world was dull and weary. With a champ like Liston, things had to be dreary. Then someone with color, someone with class, brought fight fans a running with cash. And I'm like, whoa, this dude is dropping bars right now. I'm listening to hip hop, and I'm like, wait a minute. This dude, he's spoken word hip hop, no beat in the back, but I'm kind of feeling it. Let me find out more about this man. So, I do a little bit more investigation, and then finally, we had somebody that actually had tapes of his old fights that they used to replay on ABC Wide World of Sport. So I got a chance to see some of the fights, and then the interviews came up. And when the interviews came up, I started to listen to, I'm enamored by the float by like a butterfly, sting like a bee. We've all heard that. And, the other poems that he had with Bundini. And those things were entertaining. It just drew you in. And I grew up a wrestling fan first. My schedule on Saturday mornings was wake up, get that cereal, Cocoa Pebbles, Fruity Pebbles, Cocoa Puffs. Then watch my cartoons, Turbo Team, He-Man, Rockin' Wrestling. Watch wrestling, 12 to 1. Then watch Kung Fu flicks from 1 to 2. And then go outside. But once 2 o'clock hit, I had those tapes, popped in the Muhammad Ali tape, started watching. And then now this guy's becoming part of, that heroic pantheon that you assemble as a kid, So I do the play. Had a stunning and stellar performance, might I say. Did pretty well. I could ham it up from time to time. And, that became something that, in terms of forging an identity as a young child, you try to mold yourself after your heroes. You try to mold yourself after those that you look up to. There are your immediate influences, fathers, uncles, police officers, firefighters, things of those nature. But, you also have this fantasy realm in your mind as a man. Like, when I grow up, I want to be tough. I want to be able to fight. I want to be able to shoot guns. Pew, 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 pew. Speaking of which, I wonder who was the first kid that came up with the pew, 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 pew. Like, did you do that? You did that as a kid, right? Yeah, I'm talking. I know you did it as a kid. Everybody does. You go pew, pew, pew. Who came up with pew? Like, could you imagine you trademark that? But anyway, you look to this heroic pantheon that you assemble in your head, and you try to mirror and mimic the attributes, what have you. And Muhammad Ali was not only the pinnacle for myself, but he was the pinnacle of the heroic pantheon for a generation, an entire generation. And, growing up, you get older, start to develop yourself as a young man, you go into adolescence, and then you start to not only see things that the world has to offer you, but then here comes the trick. The Brodovation rule of perception. There's 3 levels of perception in Brodovation. Listen, there is how you see yourself, which is the most important, how others see you, which can be manipulated, and who you really are. Those are the 3 levels of perception. How you see yourself, how people see you, and who you really are. And when you go out into society, you start to learn how society views you, especially as a teenage, adolescent, young black man. So now, once you peel back the entertainment aspects of Muhammad Ali with the poetry, the poems, the entertaining press conferences, then once you peel back the other layer of the supreme extraordinary athlete, his athleticism and what he did in the ring as a heavyweight, we'll talk a little bit about that more in depth. But what he meant to people on a social level at the foundation and the core of who he was, that's when, if he wasn't at the pinnacle of your heroic pantheon as a young male, especially as a young black male, his take on social issues and those interviews that he did on talk shows, the public speaking that he did on the college circuit, those are the things that put him on another level. Because, it takes courage to want to get into a sport to get you punched in the face. You get punched in the face, you got 2 choices. You can either fall, you can hold your nose, hold your eye, hold your lip, hold your head, hold something, or you can fight back. Now that's what a fight. That's a fist fight with rules, a ref, and a ring. In society and the socio-economic structure, the political environment of what was happening when he rose to prominence, when the government hits you, they're not trying to hit you in the face. They're trying to hit you for life to make an example out of you. And how he faced that challenge, how he dealt with that challenge, and how he emerged from that challenge is a blueprint for manhood, is a blueprint for life, which is one of the course, being true to yourself, being true to the fans, being true to the people around you. Now, he was not perfect at all, but he was not malicious, and he was very, very giving. This man gave a fortune away to people that needed it. Didn't look for the press, didn't look for the media, didn't use it for a tax write-off. He just gave and gave and gave and gave. Ultimately, sometimes it was to his detriment, but nonetheless, it's a benchmark of life. Because in life, you will lose far more than you could ever gain in life. But you can also give back. And that's what Muhammad Ali did. He gave back. And the fans and friends and people from around the world, they gave back by showing love at the Muhammad Ali Memorial Services, which we will talk about once we come back from this break. You are listening to Brodovation Sports with Champ Creed on Fox Sports Radio. 1340 AM. We are back. This is Brotivation Sports. I'm your host, Champ Creed. You're listening to Fox Sports 1340 AM. And before the break, we went in depth about what Muhammad Ali meant to, people of a certain generation and his spot in our heroic pantheon, to which, I think I actually might draw out a heroic pantheon. It'll be like, they say, what is your Mount Rushmore of, whether it's basketball, whether it's football, whether it's baseball, whether it's boxing, whether it's hockey. But I think heroic pantheon sounds a bit more sophisticated. No more Mount Rushmore of. The heroic pantheon. We're going with that. Heroic pantheon. So now, like I said, Muhammad Ali Memorial Services, I didn't have any plans to go. I was watching some archive footage, some archive interviews throughout the week. A very somber moment, a very celebratory moment throughout the week. Talking with my friends, family, and I had my uncle Tim, who's older than me, of course, because your uncle, it'd be weird if your uncle's younger than you, but that happens sometimes. So he asked me, hey, are you going to go? Are you going to go? He said, I would like to make it. I can't make it. I would like to show my respects to the family. And, I think somebody, should go. And I said, well, I'm thinking about it. I just got to figure it out. I went, looked for a flight, because I'm coming from the West Coast in Vegas, which is where we're going to be broadcasting from as well. So I'm like, the flight's there now. So I pick up some work in Chicago, have an assignment in Chicago, and talk with my manager, talk with a few guys, and shout out to Montel Griffin, who's the first guy to beat Roy Jones. He actually did my hand wraps for a scene that we shot for a television show. You might see Champ Creed occasionally on television from time to time. And I know Montel Griffin and his family, they were very close with, like, Muhammad Ali was practically like his second dad, And I know that he was going. And I reached out, made some phone calls to different people. And then they said, well, listen, if you're in Chicago, we're going to ride down. It's only about a 3.5, 4 hour drive. I said, oh, really? So said, you know what? My uncle can't make it, so someone from our family has to be there, to at least pay respect, pay homage, and, do those type of things that you do. So we saddled up and took about a 3.5 hour drive to the T. Could have been quicker, but I checked into my hotel. And now the actual services for the private services were held on Thursday. The memorial service for everyone was held that Friday, and it was at the KFC Yum Center, which I don't know why they called it the Yum Center. It's kind of a funny name for these arenas, but naming rights is a big business, And 15,000 tickets were dispersed, and 15,000 tickets went really quickly. When you have people coming from around the world, those type of tickets, they go to the local folks first. And some of the local people, much to my chagrin, they were trying to sell the tickets. You try to make a buck the best way that you can, but there are certain things that you just don't do. And that's on the list of things that you just don't do. I mean, I'm not here to judge and say that, or point my finger, hey, you're wrong, you're going to hell, you're doing it. No. But it's just a matter of class and tact. Like I said, Muhammad Ali gave away so much. So if this man meant something to you and you wanted someone else to go, then you should have gave away the tickets. Don't try to sell the tickets. I didn't like that. That was the only thing that I didn't like about, the weekend and the days surrounding it. But moving on to a more positive situation. So I wake up a little late, and I'm bugging out like, oh man, I was on the road, waking up late, I'm gonna miss the motorcade, I'm gonna miss everything. But fortunately, the process in which they were transferring the casket to the hearse to prepare for the motorcade, it took them a little bit longer. Miss Lonnie, she had everything mapped out with the local news, and it was written down that things should be set in a certain way, and she waited till everything was set in a certain way, which fortunately bought myself and my team enough time to be able to get down there. We got to look. Lennox Lewis was there, Will Smith was there, Mike Tyson was there. Mike Tyson almost didn't make it. Mike Tyson was so emotionally distraught that he came at the last minute. And when I say the last minute, Mike Tyson showed up at the last minute because he didn't know if he would be able to, keep himself composed because he was stricken with so much grief. We talk about life taking away from you more than you could ever gain. Here's a guy with Mike Tyson, which we'll probably save for another show. Matter of fact, I might even try to get Mike Tyson on the show. Matter of fact, you know what? There is no try. There is do. So we're going to have Mike Tyson on the show at some point in time this summer. Nonetheless, we get there and we're ahead of the motorcade. So we kind of know, we already had a map of where everything was going to be, how everything was going to go for the timetable. And for production purposes, we were able to set up at the corner of Grand Avenue, where Muhammad Ali grew up, at his house. And as the helicopters start flying in, you start seeing the people, they ramp up a little bit. And it's, everyone there had a jovial, respectful spirit. And just to give you an idea of where Muhammad Ali grew up, what he came up through, what he had to fight through, there was a time when he was an 8-year-old boy, 9-year-old boy. This isn't too far removed from Emmett Till, being killed. This isn't too far from black men being hung from a tree, lynchings. Kentucky, parts of it, a lot of parts of it, Klan country. The socioeconomic structure, you have your working class, you have your middle class, you have your upper class, and then you had dirt poor. Now, when you pull into Louisville, you can see there's the downtown central area. There's a little bit of transitioning. Then you can see the place where they're going through gentrification, which is the major thing that's going on through many cities in America. And then you get to the hood. And there was a point in time, listen, it's 2016. There were kids running outside barefoot, Now, I don't know if they had shoes or not. I don't know if, because sometimes when you're down south, you like to run with no shoes. When I was down south and I lived down south as a kid, I walked around with no shoes. But we had a, farm and we had land and everything. And that's what, I wasn't running in the street on concrete without any shoes. But that's indicative of the socio-economic stratosphere in which it still grips, it's still in place. These things are just social hurdles and barriers that just exist. And this man grew up in this house in a poor part of town, wasn't a great student. I heard from so many people that, academically, he was not the best student, but his charisma and his charm endeared him to the teachers. I learned that Muhammad Ali was actually dyslexic. He had problems with reading, problems with dyslexia. And as he became old, the story goes, someone stole his bike and he was so frustrated. And he said, whoever stole my bike, I'm gonna whip him. He was mad. And there was a local police officer, saw this, heard the story, and said, I'm gonna teach you how to fight. He got in the gym, fell in love with the sport of boxing. And then throughout the years, as he rose the ranks, he became a local celebrity figure. Now, I will say this about the police officers in Louisville. They were the most kind and gracious and respectful police officers that I've encountered, I'd have to say ever. Ever. Maybe because of the moment, maybe because of the day, maybe because of the man. They did an A1 job in communicating with the community, communicating with the visitors, communicating with the media, it was an A1 job, and I have to give a shout out to them because, you know, that type of police work, I wish it could be replicated and duplicated and multiplied with various police departments. And I know that it's a tough job to be a police officer, but they showed up and they did extremely well. So, you know, learning these things about Muhammad Ali and learning that, you know, none of the teachers, they didn't want to be the teacher that failed the great Cassius Clay, as which his friends referred him to, because they knew he was destined for greatness growing up, and they knew that it would be through, you know, boxing. And, you know, at that time, we're going through the advent of television. You know, his charisma with the advent of television, to be able to translate that to that platform, and then even with radio, and then even in engaging with the sports writers, these were things that boxers never really did before. He took a page out the book of Gorgeous George, who's one of the top, if not the top, drawing professional wrestler from the golden era of professional wrestling. He said, I saw what Gorgeous George was doing and that he was pretty, and I knew that I was pretty too, so I might as well run with this and make it a little bit better. And damn it, did it work, you know? So you get to see all these things and hear all these stories and see the children cheering. And, you know, I watched the archive footage, you know, When We Were Kings documentaries, the Ali movie with Will Smith, and, you know, Will Smith was there. I'll tell you guys about that after the break. I've only seen people chant Ali, Ali, or Ali, Boumaye, Ali, Boumaye. To be wrapped in a crowd and to have that sound and those words just rain down as the hearse begin to turn the corner, as the people anticipated the casket to be driven through the hood, and to pay respects by throwing roses and flowers and showering the grief-stricken family with love from our hearts for the respect of this man with the chant of Ali, Ali. It was one of the most, if not the most, riveting moment that I'd have to say in my personal lifetime, because it's something that I've seen as a child, it's something that I've seen as a young adult, something that I've seen as a man, but to be in the environment of a person that affected so many people in an inspirational way, and have those people cheer, and have those people yell his name, that, my friend, you cannot put a price on that. More about the Muhammad Ali Memorial Experience on Brotivation Sports, Fox Sports Radio 1340 AM. We are back. Brotivation Sports, your host, Champ Creed, Fox Sports Radio 1340. So, you know, I'm just sitting in here and I'm conversing with Dave about what the experience was like. And, you know, like he just said, if you weren't there, you missed it. This was a funeral, a going home service that was part funeral, part rock concert, part sporting event, part social media extravaganza, part everything. I mean, you had Billy Crystal, you had Bill Clinton, you had, you know, I think the Prime Minister of Pakistan was there, representatives and dignitaries from Turkey, Bahrain, you know, you name it, they were there. You know, Muhammad Ali, after he defeated, or after he lost to Leon Spinks the first time, he went to India, and there was still people cheering like the man never lost. You know, and it's funny when you win when you win fights in a fight game. You know, when you're winning, everyone's on your side. And this is in life. When you're losing, people kind of shy away from you. You're not as hot anymore. But because of what Muhammad Ali accomplished during his life, you know, his stance against the Vietnam War, his stance against oppression and inequality, those things resonated with people around the world. Because when you really think about it, most of the world is poor. And, you know, as it happens, most of the world has melanated skin content. So when you have a supreme athlete at his level that is the most recognizable, one of the three most recognizable men in the world, as I told you, you have the advent of television and radio, that pocket of time in which he rose to prominence meant so much for not only just black people in America, but colored people around the world. And not only even colored people, but anyone that was being faced with oppression, anyone that wanted to achieve greatness, because he came from the mud. He came from, when Drake says started at the bottom, now he came from the bottom and rose to heights that you wouldn't believe. And he was friendly, very childlike in his communication. And Billy Crystal told a story about when they went to Howard Cosell, the great Howard Cosell, the sidekick to Muhammad Ali, or maybe Muhammad Ali was his sidekick. They had an incredible relationship. But when he passed away, he's there, and he has the hairpiece on. So Muhammad Ali goes to to Billy Crystal and said, "Hey Billy, do you think that when he gets to heaven, because of the hairpiece, that God is gonna recognize him at the funeral?" And Billy looks at him, he says, "Well, you know what, champ? I'm pretty sure when he opens his mouth, God will know who he is." And then here are these two guys cracking up like school children at a funeral. And the funniest laugh, and I know you probably don't want to admit this, Dave, but the funniest laugh is when you're not supposed to laugh. That's when you crack up the hardest, when you're not supposed to laugh. So, just a jovial spirit, and that jovial spirit was definitely felt throughout the KFC Center and in the Ali Center. And I'm happy to say that at the Ali Center they had a photo. I can't remember what magazine cover it was, but it was a very, very good looking magazine. Magazine cover. The champ is sharp. Champ has his tuxedo, his cummerbund, and everything. And they let the first few people that were there that attended to sign it. And those who signed the magazine cover poster, it actually will be framed and put inside the Ali Center. I have a little bit of video of that. And I'm going to put together a video package, and we'll have it on the Fox Sports 1340 AM YouTube page by the time you actually listen to this. And you'll be able to check it out. So the fact that I was able to have my signature on this artifact, and then have that artifact framed in the Ali Center, it's a great feeling, and I'm so happy that I got a chance to represent my family, to pay my respects to his family, to pay my respects to his memory. And there's so much more that went on that you just had to be there. There were people from other countries, like I said, that put down their flags in front of his house, in front of his home where he grew up. And you got a sense that, in the current state of sports and media, with so many social issues that are occurring, a lot of athletes say he was influential, he was a hero, he was, this and that. But I highly doubt that you'll get an athlete in this generation to stand up, because see, when his boxing license was revoked and he was declared public enemy #1, there was a lot of money that disappeared from his pocket. There was a lot of money that he missed out on, not just from his fights, but endorsement. There's a whole lot of things, and he had to scrape and scrap to survive, to rebuild his fortune. You know what? To put it in proper context, what Muhammad Ali meant to that time would be the equivalent of Steph Curry or LeBron James stepping up and going up and speaking out against Donald Trump at a rally. Not from Twitter, at a rally. Steph Curry, LeBron James at an anti-Trump protest rally. That's similar to what it would be. That's the closest thing that I can think of. Or if there's another police brutality case, which the way we're going in America, there probably will be another one, an athlete of that magnitude going, standing up, speaking on behalf of the people, the truth that resonates in his heart, not caring about what it would mean to his endorsements, not caring about what it would mean to his league, but caring more so what it meant to him his people, and the people that follow him around the world. I don't think we get anything like that again. I think that was a rare moment in time. I hope that I'm wrong, and I hope that in passing, Muhammad Ali's legacy can inspire other athletes, other people of prominence, because it just doesn't have to be an athlete, to speak up. And you don't have to be, on a LeBron James or Steph Curry level. It can be in your local community. That's where you start first. You start where you live. You uplift the people around you where you live. You do as much as you can, because everybody ain't going to hop on a boat. Everybody's not going to tie themselves to your ship. Everybody's not going to subscribe to what you feel is the necessary movements to uplift yourself, your family. So first, you can lead by example and then reach out. People won't reach back, but the ones that do, you take them and you uplift them. And I don't think we get that from today's modern athlete, but hopefully, prayerfully, in passing, his legacy will inspire someone to speak out that can affect social change. So if you want to see more of the Muhammad Ali Memorial Experience, you can go to our YouTube page at 1340 Fox Sports at 1340 AM. You can check out our Twitter at 1340 AM Fox Sports. You can check out our Instagram at Fox Sports 1340 AM. And when we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit more about the passing of another fight luminary who came from the bottom. That would be Kevin Ferguson, a.k.a. Kimbo Slice. This is Brotivation Sports, Fox Sports Radio 1340. Champ Creed will be back after the break. Welcome back, Brotivation Sports. This is Champ Creed. Thank you all for listening to the Muhammad Ali Memorial Special. And I would be remiss if I also didn't mention, the passing of, wow. You want to talk about a phenomenon. Now, he may not be on my my list of he may not be on my heroic pantheon of athletes, but there's a special room for Kimbo Slice, man, because you want to talk about coming around once in a particular generation. He came up during the YouTube generation. Rest in peace to Kimbo, and my condolences go out to his family, and I have friends in the business that knew him. But check this out. I'm all about my stats. I'm all about metrics, although I don't believe in basketball advanced metrics are everything, but that's another show. Check this. On June 7th, Kimbo Slice, the video reporting the news of his passing, received 1.6 million views in total on ESPN.com, and it eclipsed the views of the video package on Muhammad Ali. Now, you got to think, as I explained to my staff and my friends, Muhammad Ali, television generation. Kimbo Slice, social media generation. We live now in a social media generation. Muhammad Ali's core fan base and people that know about him, they get their news from traditional media outlets. So that's why those numbers are that way. But, going back to the life of Kevin Ferguson, Kimbo Slice. I mean, here's a guy who had a family. He basically came from rebuilding his life after a hurricane and said, you know what? I got to rebuild my life. I got to feed my family. I got to feed my kids. I got to take care of everybody. What do I have? I got these knuckles on the end of my wrists, and I'm going to put them through the face of any man standing across from me, and I'm going to do it for the money. It just so happened that he came along in a time when YouTube, for hell, him and YouTube started around the same damn time when you think about it. And although Kimbo, he didn't do too much social activism, Kimbo didn't travel around the world and speak in front of, scholastic luminaries and foreign dignitaries and grand universities. he did speak to a generation through social media in an entertaining fashion. Like his fight with D, crazy. His loss to Rich Gannon, look, everybody takes an L. But Rich Gannon was trained. You know, he single-handedly put Elite XC on the map. I mean, he's the reason why they got a television deal with CBS. You know, I still remember, like, when Kimbo was fighting, it was an event. He fought Ray Mercer. He fought Tank Abbott. He fought James Colossal Thompson. Kimbo Slice filled in that lane that Mike Tyson left open for us. A menacing human ball of destruction that wreaked havoc with his hands and put people down. And his look was just, you couldn't, if you asked Stan Lee from Marvel Comics to draw a menacing supervillain from the hood that can destroy everything with a boom, you get Kimbo Slice. He came straight out of a comic book. Yeah, I'm sounding like The Last Dragon. You come straight out of a comic book, man. But, you know, Kimbo Slice, I mean, his life was, he died young, man, you know, and there was a autopsy will come out, and, you know, we'll get the details on that. But, you know, there was just so much more that I don't think that he had too many years left fighting, for the simple fact that he got off to a very, very late start. And even when he got to the UFC and he did the Ultimate Fighter, you know, he did pretty well. You know, he's in there with guys that have been training for a very, very long time, and all he did was, you know, hit the heavy bags, go out in the street, punch refrigerators, you know, lift cement blocks. He did the hood workout, you know, and he handled himself pretty well. You know, the one thing that I don't like is that I felt that he wasn't given a shot in UFC. I felt like, you know, he had the fight with Houston Alexander, to which they both gassed out, and that was a tough fight. He had the fight with Matt Mitrione, and he didn't do too well. He didn't fare too well. I think that if you would have cultivated his career and gave him matchups. See, the difference between boxing and UFC is when you have a promoter and you have a fighter, the promoter knows that that fighter is his money. So he cultivates the career of the fighter. He doesn't put them out there with killers right away. He develops him, helps develop his confidence, help him fight to develop his technique, get ring time. You know, Kimbo, he had the Ultimate Fighter, he needed a little bit more ring time. And then the matchups are key. Promotional value-wise, Kimbo was box office. He had the record on the Tough Enough, on the Ultimate Fighter. He had the record ratings, even though it was Rampage and Rashad as the main draw. Kimbo helped sell that pay-per-view. 1 million people bought that pay-per-view, and that was with two black dudes, you know, as the headliner. And UFC, as we'll talk about, the racial demographic of UFC fans, yeah, that's going to get a little deep in the history of the sport, because I have my experiences with that, and I can't wait to share with them on that show. But Kimbo was box office. And to this day, I say this. Kimbo has this fight with Houston Alexander. Wasn't eventful. He wins by decision. If you would have put, and you listening to this, listen to me, Dave. If you would have put Kimbo Slice versus Brock Lesnar, 2009, 2000, whatever the case may be, that would have sold 3 million pay-per-views. Kimbo Slice, when he's hot. Brock Lesnar. I mean, you're hot-shotting people anyway. It's a pay-per-view market. You got to sell. Your objective is to sell. Let the people argue about it later. You got to sell pay-per-views to stay in business. To this day, the biggest MMA pay-per-view would have been Kimbo Slice versus Brock Lesnar. And if y'all don't agree with me, you can follow me at Champ Creed on Instagram, at Champ Creed on Snapchat, at Champ Creed on Twitter. And we can talk about it. Kimbo versus Brock. Because look, either somebody's getting ground and pounded, somebody's getting submitted, or somebody's getting knocked out. Right? So you know this ain't going to go the distance. Something's going to happen. Man, I would have loved to seen the betting line and seen the smart money on that one. And speaking of the betting line and smart money, on the next Brotivation Sports, being as though we ran a little bit over, we will discuss the UFC 200 special, the smart money, and then we're going to go into our segment called The Game After the Game. Ooh, the game after the game. What is that? What will that be? I'll tell you this much. From a brotivational standpoint, the game after the game will enhance your life in several areas, including with the ladies. This is Champ Creed. Thank you for listening. This is Fox Sports Radio 1340, Brotivational Sports, Brotivation Sports, Brotivationize your life. We'll see you tomorrow.